I was unsure of what to talk about in this video, but to put it bluntly, um, it appears that, my ex has been watching some of my videos. She made that evident yesterday. She talked about a video, my most recent video, the one where I stated that I'm nothing now. And, you know, it was more just an event because I was just being reactive in that video. I mean, I'm still trying to get a grasp on me reacting and me trying to actually process everything. Because normally if I just process everything, like my emotions of anger or depression or maybe agitation, so I guess you can group that with anger. Normally if I process that, I actually can handle it pretty well. Like for example, yesterday I was pissed off that the bus was over 40 minutes late. I was angry. I was, swearing out loud. Not screaming, but just swearing out loud. But, had 40 minutes passed, and I had time to just, I guess, decompress or just marinate. I wouldn't really get, I wouldn't get on the bus and start causing a scene. I would just get on the bus. I would just say hello and then, throw my digital ticket their way. So, but there was one point in the conversation, because we had texted a little bit yesterday, and we were talking about that video. The conversation eventually came up to me, trying to be happy and, me seeing that as a vulnerability. I don't know why I see it that way. I always felt that I should be unhappy or that I'm unworthy of a lot of things. Despite the fact I buy a lot of shit, I still feel like I'm unworthy of anything. I think for a long time I thought I was unworthy of friends. And, to an extent I still feel like I'm not really worthy of friendship. Or anything, really. And I don't know if it stems from, my father figures from my childhood. One was emotionally abusive. He would terrorize me. So I guess that probably explains why that part of my childhood's a blur, because I don't really remember much from there. I only remember much from maybe when I was 8 years old and beyond, which was when, my first stepfather was not in the picture, and when we were living with my grandmother. So I have all the fond memories of, living with my mother and grandmother, my grandmother taking me out and making me happy. So I don't know if anyone can really offer reasons why I would think happiness is a vulnerability. I mean, because later on my second stepfather, my late father, came into the picture, and he started talking a lot about negativity. He started talking a lot about how the world is a, forgive my language, fucked up place. And it is, because also he's seen the worst of humanity. I mean, this man worked in law enforcement, he worked at detention centers, he's seen it all. He's seen the worst of people. So I think he just held on to that for so long. And that kind of leaked out onto me, and I just, I didn't think it would leak out onto me, but, now that I have the ability to take a step back and see, I, in a way, have become a lot like him in terms of my pessimistic viewpoints of the world. I've also become a lot like him in being authoritative, when I need to be. And I don't like that. I've always had a problem with authority figures as well. Suppose my mother can tell you a lot about that. I would get in trouble in school a lot, mainly because I wouldn't listen to anybody. But, now there's this yearning that I have for control over everything. Because now that my father's not here, and actually this was when he died, when he was no longer around, my anger wasn't suppressed. I never learned how to manage that. It was just suppressed. Because I was afraid of my stepfather. I was afraid to make him angry. I was afraid to be angry. So a lot of, negative emotions were just bottled up. But anyway, it's just strange that's the viewpoint that I have, that being happy is vulnerable. I think it's more of, I just feel like if I became happy, I would forget all of the issues that were plaguing me. I would be unaware of them. And I would be vulnerable to people using me, or I'd be vulnerable to some form of exploitation. I've been used by people before. I've been used by people who I thought were my friends, while I was still living in California. Turns out they were just using me to get what they want. And that kind of hurt. So, after a while, I found it very hard to trust people and hold them to their word. My friends in California hardly ever hung out with me. And mostly because they were busy, but, after a certain point, I think I just subconsciously stopped, I stopped trusting other people. I stopped trusting their word, and I started planning around it. I still plan my entire day. And I think that's also where my anxiety kind of stems in, is that I plan everything ahead of time, and when people mess with that plan, I'm just thrown into a loop completely. There were times where I tried to make plans just by myself, and then my friends would try to show up, and this is back in Cali. Some of my friends tried showing up, and yeah, I was happy, but at the same time, I just thought, oh, you cared enough to actually show up now. So, that's a little talk about, well, that's a little bit about what we talked about yesterday. I don't know, I also feel like at the same time, happiness is such a fleeting thing to chase. So I guess I also question, why chase something that will never fully last? Will it make me better? I mean, yeah. Happiness, whenever I do have it, does make me feel better. But it just seems like a fleeting emotion. But I do want to find a way to make that last and hold on to it. Granted, I put a lot of things into happiness for me, and maybe I should just let happiness being the randomness that is life. Life's chaotic. Don't know what will happen. So, might as well just try and enjoy it. Been using this time to save up money. And honestly, the money that I saved up, I never considered really my own. I considered it my ex's. I was going to use all that money to put down on a house for her, but, we kept wanting to look for a condo. And that kind of stressed me out, because, I wanted her to have a place of her own. I think deep down it was more of, yeah, I want shelter, but, this is something that she wanted more. I just saw this as a pipe dream. But I wanted to do my best to make sure she had it. So I guess now that I have the money back, there's not much point in just spending it a little bit. I'm not spending all of it, but, spend it a little bit and have fun. Because, who am I saving a house for anymore? Me? Plus that, and can't afford a house at this point. Even if I did get, the job that I want, it's going to be nearly impossible, especially with the prices nowadays. Like, the median has to be 10 times what would be supposed wage, at least in this city, and that's not as crazy as California or New York. So just let that part sink in. I think the median home price across the U.S. is at least around 300,000, while the median wage is still 30 to 40,000. 30 to 50,000 will widen the range. Anyway, I'm ranting at this point, so I'm gonna end it here. Thanks for listening.